He penned the words that ignite revolutions, declaring all men equal, yet owned hundreds himself. He envisioned a nation built on yeoman farmers, then masterminded a land deal that fundamentally reshaped a continent. Thomas Jefferson, a name etched into the very foundation of America, but whose legacy is a tapestry woven with both luminous ideals and profound paradoxes. We often simplify our heroes, reducing them to iconic statues and textbook facts. But what if the true story is far more intricate, more challenging, and ultimately more human? What if the man behind the myth held secrets, made compromises, and grappled with contradictions that still echo in our society today? Prepare to journey beyond the legend and discover the compelling, often unsettling, truth about the mind that shaped a nation. You might think you know Thomas Jefferson, but this story will make you question everything you thought you understood. Our journey into the enigma of Thomas Jefferson begins not with a politician, but with a scholar, a meticulous observer of the natural world, and a voracious reader. Born into the Virginia gentry in 1743, Jefferson inherited a vast estate and a social standing that afforded him the finest education. From his early days at the College of William and Mary, under the tutelage of figures like William Small, he immersed himself in the Enlightenment. He devoured Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau, thinkers who articulated radical new ideas about natural rights, self-governance, and the social contract. These weren't mere academic exercises for Jefferson. They were the blueprints for a better world, a world he believed was within reach. Yet, this intellectual pursuit unfolded against a backdrop of growing unrest. The British colonies chafed under imperial rule, and Jefferson, despite his quiet demeanor, found his voice in the burgeoning revolutionary movement. He was not a charismatic orator like Patrick Henry, nor a fiery polemicist like Samuel Adams. Jefferson's power lay in his pen, in his ability to distill complex philosophical arguments into elegant, persuasive prose. He was called upon to draft the Declaration of Independence in 1776, a task he approached with characteristic intensity. The result was not just a list of grievances, but a soaring articulation of human aspiration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These words, born of Enlightenment thought, became the bedrock of American identity, echoing across centuries and inspiring movements for freedom worldwide. It was a revolutionary statement, a promise to humanity. Here, we see Jefferson the idealist, a young man, barely in his 30s, articulating a vision for human freedom that was breathtaking in its scope. He genuinely believed in the power of reason and the rights of individuals. His contributions during this period were not just political acts. They were philosophical declarations, setting a moral compass for a nation yet to be born. But even as he penned these immortal words, the first threads of contradiction began to appear, subtle yet significant. The very all men he spoke of did not, in practice, include the enslaved people who labored on his own land. This foundational tension would define his life, a constant, often uncomfortable, counterpoint to his grand pronouncements. The years following the Declaration saw Jefferson serve as governor of Virginia during the trying times of the Revolutionary War. It was a period of immense challenge and personal hardship. His administration was plagued by British invasions, and he faced accusations of cowardice and mismanagement, criticisms that deeply wounded his sensitive nature. He retreated from public life for a time, finding solace at Monticello, his beloved mountaintop home, a testament to his architectural genius and his insatiable curiosity. Monticello was more than just a house. It was a living laboratory, a reflection of Jefferson's Renaissance mind. He cultivated exotic plants, experimented with agricultural techniques, designed innovative gadgets, and amassed one of the largest personal libraries in America. He truly believed in the agrarian ideal, a nation of independent, self-sufficient farmers as the purest foundation for a republic. This vision was not merely economic. It was deeply moral and political. He feared the corrupting influence of cities, banks, and manufacturing, believing they would breed dependency and erode civic virtue. His time as minister to France from 1784 to 1789 further broadened his horizons, exposing him to European culture, art, and the intellectual ferment leading up to the French Revolution. He witnessed firsthand the stark inequalities of the Old World, solidifying his republican convictions and his belief in popular sovereignty. He returned to a newly formed United States, now governed by a constitution he had not helped draft, but which he would profoundly shape. In this period, we observe Jefferson, the visionary architect, not just of buildings, but of an ideal society. He was a man driven by intellectual pursuit, a polymath who sought to understand and improve every facet of life around him. His retreat to Monticello wasn't an escape from responsibility, but a period of intense reflection and creation, where his republican ideals were refined and strengthened. He dreamed of a nation free from the corrupting influences of monarchy and aristocracy, a beacon of liberty for the world. But even in this idyllic setting, the shadow of slavery persisted. Monticello, a symbol of intellectual brilliance and self-sufficiency, was also a plantation dependent on enslaved labor, creating an undeniable paradox at the heart of his personal and political philosophy. Upon his return, Jefferson was appointed the first Secretary of State under President George Washington. This marked the beginning of his ideological clash with Alexander Hamilton, Washington's Secretary of the Treasury. Hamilton, a staunch Federalist, envisioned a strong central government, a national bank, and a diversified economy fueled by manufacturing and commerce. Jefferson, the emerging leader of the Democratic Republicans, vehemently opposed this vision. He saw Hamilton's policies as a dangerous slide towards monarchy and aristocracy, undermining the very Republican principles he held dear. The debates between these two titans shaped the nascent American political landscape, laying the groundwork for the two-party system that endures today. In 1800, Jefferson narrowly won the presidency, a victory he famously called the Revolution of 1800, believing it a triumph of republicanism over Federalist elitism. His presidency was marked by significant achievements, most notably the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. This audacious acquisition, which doubled the size of the United States, was a monumental act of executive power, arguably exceeding his own strict interpretation of the Constitution. Yet, it perfectly embodied his agrarian dream, providing vast new lands for independent farmers and securing American dominance in North America. He dispatched Lewis and Clark to explore this new frontier, an expedition that captured the imagination of the nation and expanded scientific knowledge. Here, we encountered Jefferson, the pragmatic president, willing to bend his own principles when confronted with the realities of power and opportunity. The man who advocated for strict adherence to the Constitution made the most significant land deal in American history without explicit constitutional authority. This was a leader capable of bold action, driven by an unwavering belief in the nation's destiny. Yet, the paradox of his presidency is starkest when viewed through the lens of slavery. While expanding the Empire of Liberty, this expansion also deepened the institution of slavery, extending its reach into new territories. Jefferson's private struggle with slavery was complex and deeply personal. He called it a moral depravity and a hideous blot, yet he never found a way to emancipate his own enslaved people, citing economic dependence and a fear of societal disruption. His proposals for gradual emancipation and colonization, while progressive for some at the time, were also deeply flawed, reflecting the racial prejudices of the era. The very people who built Monticello, who cultivated his crops, and who served his family, remained enslaved, their freedom deferred, their humanity denied by the very man who championed liberty. After 2 terms, Jefferson retired to Monticello, seeking refuge from the political battles that had consumed him. Yet, even in retirement, he remained a prolific correspondent, a revered elder statesman, and a passionate advocate for education, founding the University of Virginia as his final great public service. He dedicated his later years to its design and curriculum, envisioning an institution that would foster an educated citizenry essential for a thriving republic. However, the shadow of slavery at Monticello remained. The recent archaeological and historical work has brought to light the full extent of the enslaved community and the profound impact of their labor on Jefferson's life and legacy. The story of Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman with whom Jefferson had several children, has become a central and often painful part of this narrative. While long debated, DNA evidence and a growing body of historical research strongly support the accounts of Hemings' descendants, revealing a deeply personal and disturbing aspect of Jefferson's life, further complicating the image of the enlightened founding father. Jefferson died on July 4, 1826, precisely 50 years after the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, a date he shared with his old rival and friend, John Adams. His final epitaph, which he drafted himself, famously omitted his presidency, focusing instead on his roles as author of the Declaration of Independence, the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. He chose to be remembered for his intellectual contributions to liberty and knowledge, not for his political power. In his final years, we see Jefferson as a complex figure, aware of his achievements yet perhaps wrestling with his failures. He was a man who genuinely believed in the power of human reason and the inherent rights of individuals, yet who was deeply enmeshed in an economic and social system that contradicted those very beliefs. His legacy is not a simple narrative of good versus evil, but a profound exploration of human inconsistency, of the struggle between ideals and reality. He left behind a nation that would continue to grapple with the promises he made, a nation still striving to live up to the revolutionary ideals he so eloquently articulated. Thomas Jefferson was a man of towering intellect and profound influence, a true architect of American identity. He gave us the language of liberty, the vision of an expansive republic, and the enduring belief in the power of an educated citizenry. Yet, to truly understand him is to confront the uncomfortable truths of his era and the undeniable contradictions within his own life. His story forces us to ask, can we separate the ideals from the actions? Can a man preach freedom while denying it to others? How do we reconcile the genius with the moral failings? The answers are not easy, and perhaps there are no singular answers. But in grappling with these questions, we don't diminish Jefferson. We bring him to life, transforming him from a distant marble statue into a vibrant, flawed, and profoundly human figure. His legacy is not static. It is a living conversation, a mirror reflecting our own ongoing struggle to build a more perfect union. He set a trajectory for America, one of constant striving towards the ideals he penned. And in exploring his complexities, we gain a deeper understanding not just of one man, but of the very foundations of our nation and the continuing challenges we face in fulfilling its promise. If this journey into the layered history of Thomas Jefferson has sparked your curiosity, if it's made you think differently about the figures who shaped our world, then perhaps there are more stories waiting to be uncovered, more truths to be examined. Every history holds threads that connect directly to our present, enriching our understanding and challenging our perspectives. What other historical figures, do you wonder, hide similar complexities beneath their celebrated images? There are countless narratives waiting to unfold, each with the power to surprise and enlighten.